All right, so we're just going to review solving literal equations, and we're going to add in the Pythagorean theorem today. All right, so remember when we are trying to solve a literal, all we're doing is rearranging the formula. So in this one, they want me to solve for r. So because the t is multiplying to the r, I'm going to divide by t, giving me d divided by t is equal to r. Now, if I'm given some information here, okay, and they say that Carson drove 1,200 miles in 18 hours. What was his average speed? Well, I've already rearranged my formula here to find my average speed. So all I have to do is plug in these to their respective. So the 1,200 is my distance. The 18 hours is my time. So I get 1,200 divided by 18, and that's going to give me my rate, or my time, or my average speed. And 1,200 divided by 18 gives me 66.7. Now it says round to the nearest unit, which means the nearest whole number. So r is going to be approximately 67. And that is miles per hour. All right, so let's look at another one. All right, so remember we talked about when we have a fraction, we can multiply by its reciprocal to get rid of that fraction. So I'm going to multiply by 3, which is the reciprocal of 1/3. Okay, that cancels out my fraction over here. And I get 3v is equal to, well, what am I left with over here? Pi r squared times the height. Now, wanting to solve for h, so I can divide both sides by pi r squared. So we get 3 times v divided by pi r squared is equal to my height. All right, and if I'm given that the volume of a cone, that should be an n there, I apologize, is 300 cubic inches, and the radius is 6 inches. What is the height? Well, I've already got this solved, so that way all I have to do is plug in. So I get 3 times 300 divided by pi times 6 squared, and that's going to give me my height. All right, so I can simplify some things. I can do 6 squared first, which is 36. So I get 3 times 300 divided by pi times 36. I can do my multiplication now. 3 times 300 is 900 divided by, well, they tell me use 3.14 for pi, which when I multiply those two together, I get 113.04. Now 900 divided by 113.04 gives me 7.96, and they tell me to round to the nearest inch, which would be approximately 8 inches. All right, so let's talk about Pythagorean theorem. This is just another formula, right? So we could solve for A or B and be able to just plug in when we were given. So remember, Pythagorean theorem only works with right triangles, meaning they have a 90-degree angle. Our C is always the one that is opposite the right angle. Okay, this will always be C. So what we call our hypotenuse. All right, so I'm going to take and solve this for both A and B. So we're going to start with solving for A. So the first thing I would do is subtract B squared on both sides. So I get A squared is equal to C squared minus B squared. Now, A is not by itself, so I have to take the square root of A, because I want to get rid of that squared on the A. I want just A. And the opposite of a square is a square root. So we get C squared minus B squared under the square root is equal to our A. All right, so we're going to look at solving for B this time. So this time, instead of subtracting B squared, I'm going to subtract A squared. Notice very similar process, I'm just subtracting a different one. So I end up with B squared is equal to C squared minus A squared. Now, because I want C by itself, I am going to take the square root of both sides. And I get B is equal to the square root of C squared minus A squared. Okay. All right, so given the triangle below, we're going to find the missing value. So in this one, they want me to find A. Well, I had a formula. Remember, we found that? So we get A is equal to the square root of C squared minus B squared. Remember, this is my C is always the one opposite. So I get A is equal to 12 squared minus 4.5 squared. All right, 12 squared is 144. And 4.5 squared is 20.25. And if I take 144 minus 20.25, I get 123.75. Do not drop that square root until we get to our single number. So now I can take the square root of that, and I get the square root, not the square root, I get that A is equal to 11.1. Okay, we're going to try one more. So given the triangle below, find the missing value. Well, this time they want me to find B, and B was equal to the square root of C squared minus A squared. Remember, C is always the one that is across from the right angle. So we get B is equal to the square root of 54.6 squared minus 48 squared. So 54.6 squared that is going to give me 2,981.16 minus 48 squared, which is 2,304. So I'm going to take those two numbers and subtract them. And I get the square root of 677.16. Now don't forget, I've got to do the square root of that. So our B is equal to 26.02. It's telling me to round to the nearest tenth, so it's 26. And that is it.